Good evening, everybody, and welcome. May I remind everyone present that this hybrid meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand in person if sat in the chamber, or use the remote raise hand function located in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. This will put you in the speaker queue accordingly. When subsequently invited to address by myself, please then press your activation button in the bottom centre of your screen. Please be patient and aware that there will be a small time lag and that you do not need to press the button again. The response of the system is not instant. If the button or desk microphone changes to red, then it has responded. If a participant raises their hand via the remote function and is not subsequently invited to address by myself, please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by myself, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating in this. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of myself and or Amy, my Democratic Service Officer, as soon as possible. Once you have participated, please remember to turn your activation button off as not to delay other participants from coming onto screen and to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and or to grab the attention of myself or the Democratic Service Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let myself or the Democratic Services Officer know. If a remote committee member has a prejudicial interest and is therefore required to withdraw from the meeting, the Democratic Service Officer will place the participant in the virtual waiting room until such time that the interested item has concluded. Please do not close your browser window whilst in the waiting room, as the Democratic Service Officer will bring you back into the meeting automatically when appropriate. For members attending the meeting in person, they will be asked to leave the chamber for the duration of the interested item and will be invited back into the room as appropriate. If an electronic vote is called during the course of the meeting, then advice on how to participate will be given accordingly to committee members with voting rights at that time. If the Welsh language is spoken during the meeting, then a simultaneous translation will be available to listen to. For meeting participants in the council chamber, a translation receiver and headset is available at each seat for you to use at the appropriate time. For remote meeting participants, the language selection is available under the audio settings tab on the left-hand side of your screen for the use at the appropriate time. The translation will also be audible on the live stream for the meeting for any persons who are observing only. Well, I'd like to welcome all the registered speakers with us this evening, or is it still afternoon? Thank you for joining us. I will call you to the meeting at an appropriate time, and allocated speaking times will be strictly adhered to, which moves us straight on. As I say, thank you all for your attendance this evening. It's a very important item for very many people. And we start with part one, apologies for absence. Do you have any apologies?
None through to myself, Chair, have received. We are still waiting for Councillor Collins and Councillor Fisher to join us. If I may, Chair, just to do some quick introductions, if that's okay with yourself.
Yes, I'm Councillor Janice Charles. I'm Chair of Healthy Living and Social Care. For those of you who don't know me, for those who do know me, sorry. Over to you, Amy.
That's okay, no problem. Your Vice Chair this evening is Councillor Neil Thomas, who's sat with your Chair on the dais. My name is Amy Rudman. I'm the Democratic and Scrutiny Services Officer supporting the Chair and the committee this evening. evening. I'm joined by my colleague Liz Whitaker, who is providing technical support for me. In terms of your committee members this evening, in the chamber you have Councillor Charles as chair, Councillor Thomas as vice, Councillor Buckley as a member of the committee and Councillor Emma Goodjohn. Other members of the committee, Councillors Ball, Cave, Cowp, Lynch-Wilson, Norman and Stallard are present and are joining the meeting remotely. The Cabinet member answering the matter this evening is Councillor Gwyn John, who's also present in the chamber. He is the Cabinet member for Leisure, Sport and Wellbeing. And also the councillor who's called in the matter this evening, Councillor Ian Johnson, is also present in the chamber. The operational manager for Neighbourhood Services, Healthy Living and Performance is Mr David Nevitt, and he's also present in the chamber next to the Cabinet member. We do have 5 public speakers who are due today. 4 are currently present and the chair will introduce them and their names will be displayed during their speaking time. I think that's all of the introductions. Just one finally, the translator who is kindly with us this evening is a gentleman called James Ewell and he's present in the AV room, giving everybody a thumbs up. Thank you, Chair. That concludes the introductions.
Thank you, Amy. Moving on then to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of March 2024.
Sorry, Chair. Could I just pass on that Councillor Collins' message says she's running late and will be with us as soon as possible.
Thank you. Back to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of March 2024.
Move the minutes.
I'll second those. Thank you very much. Which takes us on to agenda item 3, to receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interests, including whip-in declarations under the Council's Code of Conduct. Anybody? Sure? No? Okay.
No hands, Chair.
Thank you very much. This one?
That one you've just done.
Yeah.
Again, done that. You're now on 6. You've done the previous minute.
Thank you.
6.
Right. I'm going to give you a brief summary of what the running order this evening and actually what will be happening for those that don't know. The meeting has been called to consider the Cabinet decision taken on the 22nd of February 2024 in relation to the improvements to the Calcott and Buttrose recreation sites in Barry. The matter was called in by Councillor Johnson and arrangements made in line with the Council's call-in procedure as per section 7.24 of the Council's Constitution. As stated at paragraph 7.241D and E of the Council's Constitution, the committee is asked to consider the matter this evening. And if having considered the matter, committee still has concerns, then it may refer the matter back to Cabinet for reconsideration, setting out in writing the nature of its concerns. Cabinet will then reconsider the matter at the next scheduled Cabinet meeting, amending the decision or not before adopting a final decision. If the committee decides not to refer the matter back to Cabinet, then the Cabinet decision shall take effect from today's date. The running order this evening will reflect that as set out in section 11 of the Scrutiny Public Participation Guide, and I will take the committee through the procedure this evening. I would also like to take the opportunity to remind committee of its remit to encourage and promote active and healthy lifestyles and to consider the matter under this objective. So I hope that was of use and helpful for tonight's proceedings, which then takes us on to agenda item 6, which is the presentation of the report from Dave Nevitt, who is the officer. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Chair. I think, firstly, I feel it's important to emphasise that the proposals contained within the Cabinet report are firmly focused on significantly improving the opportunities for increased levels of physical activity by providing quality recreational facilities that are currently lacking. Primarily, the changing facilities at the existing sports centre do not meet current expectation of users. Sorry, do I need to be closer?
That's okay, just a little bit.
The current building at the Barry Sports Centre is beyond its life expectancy, and frankly, from a women and girls perspective, with women and girls football being amongst the fastest growing sports in the Vale of Glamorgan, are embarrassing. Clearly, our first thoughts were to refurbish the existing building or to rebuild on the same site. However, following consultation with our property section and looking at future needs, combined with the issues of the present site, the condition of the current building and its non-adaptability in terms of current regulations, the need for young people to cross the busy Colcott Road to access the pitches at the Buttrells Recreation Ground, the issues over a number of years with car parking at the sports centre site, the opportunity to maximise the two sites for different football activities, mini football and 11-a-side football, etc. The new site proposed on the Buttrells, that I understand was the original site of changing rooms before the sports centre was built, offered many advantages. Fundamental to this was also the opportunity to attract grant funding from the FAW Trust of £500,000 towards a new facility. The FAW have been consulted on the scheme and are supportive given the impact the new changing room should deliver on the Buttrells, particularly in relation to women and girls football. The ability to attract this level of funding, and we acknowledge that this is not guaranteed, being subject to a bidding process, is an opportunity we would want to see in Barry rather than this money going to another area of Wales. During discussions with the Trust, noises have been extremely positive and they acknowledge the advantages of moving to the Buttrells site and the ability of the Buttrells site to, the ability of the Colcott site to continue to cater for mini football and senior training on the small-sided ATPs that will remain at this location and be serviced by the sports hall that's currently on the site. Moving to the previous artificial turf pitch located at the Colcott site, I can confirm that this hasn't been used for organised sport for the last 5 years. This followed investment proposals in terms of new artificial turf pitches across Barry that are mainly located on school sites, as this ensures that optimum use can be made of these facilities with school use in the day and public use at evenings and weekends. As part of the discussions when considering the locations of these pitches, the locations were considered more advantageous than the Colcott site. The decision was therefore made to invest in these sites rather than the Colcott that had come to the end of its life, having been established as a sand-filled ATP in the mid-1990s. Given the number of different artificial turf pitch surfaces now available, the schools also made a strategic decision to ensure that the three main sports that use artificial turf pitches were catered for, with a rugby surface orientated being installed at Brough, a football orientated surface at Whitmore, and a hockey orientated surface at Pencoitra. Each of these pitches can also be used by the three sports mentioned for practice and training purposes. We are aware that comments have been made about the need for another sandfield ATP in Barry at the Colcott site for hockey, and that funding is available for this from Hockey Wales. I can confirm that this is not the case, as schools can train for hockey on their individual ATPs, with any matches between schools being able to play at Pencoitra, where again, having spoken to the new head teacher, facilities such as toilets and changing rooms are being made available. At a meeting with Hockey Wales, they confirmed that the provision at Pencoitra met the needs of Barry and that it wouldn't be a priority area for funding of an additional pitch at the present time. It was also acknowledged that a sandfield ATP, as used for hockey at club level and as provided at Pencoitra, are considerably less popular with other sports and therefore more difficult to hire than modern 3G surfaces provided at the other 8 artificial turf pitches in Barry. Unfortunately, Barry does not have a hockey club at present, and one hockey-focused ATP should be able to meet the demand of up to 4 hockey clubs. The council will be working with Hockey Wales in the future to provide hockey opportunities outside of school provision, with the aim of hopefully establishing an independent club in Barry. It should also be noted that Sport Wales are currently carrying out an evaluation of artificial turf pitches across Wales, and the early indications from this study is that the Vale of Glamorgan is well served in the provision of full-size artificial pitches, with Barry currently having 4, including the 3 mentioned and the council-owned Jenner Park, 2 pitches in Penarth, with the pitch at Stanwell School again being hockey orientated and used by Penarth Hockey Club, and further pitches at Lantwick Major and Cowbridge schools. Whilst, as previously mentioned, a grant is available for the proposed changing rooms on the Buttrell site, significant further funding will be required to build this facility. As members are aware, traditional capital funding provided to local authorities in Wales is significantly decreasing, with many demands for expenditure. Therefore, when exploring options for the proposed scheme at the Buttrells, the existing site at the Colcott that will no longer be used after the changing rooms open, and the redundant artificial turf pitch at the site do provide opportunities to generate a capital return for reinvestment in recreation. Combined with the housing crisis in the Vale of Glamorgan and the specific demand for housing in the Colcott area, there is an opportunity to explore, and was therefore identified in the Cabinet report after consultation with housing officers. As confirmed in the Cabinet report, the housing proposals for this site will be subject to a further Cabinet report and subsequent planning application if approved. I am aware that plans being developed for this site are sympathetic to the location, and a public consultation is being planned with local members, leisure and housing officers later this month on site at the Colcott to share these with the community. I can also confirm that no land currently used for organised sports in the last 5 years will be used for this proposed development. The same is also true at the Buttrells. Both sites will also have their own dedicated car parking provision that should relieve some of the traffic issues at the Colcott site. Members will also note that other facilities for the Colcott site that will provide additional free-to-use recreational facilities are proposed. These include a new playground that would be located near the small-sided artificial turf pitches, providing activities for younger children who are often at the site when older siblings are using the football facilities, as well as being available to the local population at all times. The proposal for a pump track is another free-to-use facility and is designed to cater for young people who, in the recent school sports survey, are not necessarily interested in team sports, but want an activity they can do on their own. Pump tracks have been highly successful in other areas in engaging with these potential users, and would build upon the success of the recently upgraded skate park at the Knapp. Early indications on this specific project indicates that grant funding could be available from Sport Wales, who were highly impressed with the investment in the skate park at the Knapp. It would also be hoped to add additional free-to-use facilities as time progresses, with a multi-use games area amongst the possibilities. We also acknowledge the comments made in relation to consultation, but confirm that consultation did take place with organisations and clubs who are directly affected by the proposals contained in the Cabinet report. Further community consultation was also planned once the proposals were supported by the Council's Cabinet. Details of the consultation event mentioned earlier will be advertised on our website / social media channels shortly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Gwyn, a Cabinet member. Councillor Gwyn John, would you like to come in and say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, this has been a big problem for a long time with the poor standard of changing rooms at the Colquitt site. And basically, with the introduction of ladies football, which has grown immensely over the last few years, and I'm sure you will see this on your televisions every week of the number of ladies playing professional level, and even at this level, at local level, we have, for example, at Lantred Major, a girls' team at every age level from under sevens up, plus ladies' teams. And this has become a very popular for ladies. And whereas once upon a time, we had the changing facilities over on the Buttrells, which we used my men back in 1962 when I first played my game up there. And basically, those were just very poor condition. Subsequently, the Colquitt site, the Colquitt changing room was built in 1963, opened in November 63 by the Duke of Edinburgh, and subsequently served the purpose at that time as there were football pitches on both sites. However, in recent times, most of the football is played on the Buttrells. There's just one pitch on the Colquitt side, and quite honestly, they're fortunate to be allowed into the Alliance League because the standards do not meet the requirements of the Alliance League. So they would move over to the Buttrells site with a better standard of changing rooms close to the pitch, and the pitch would be enclosed just like the current one is. But quite honestly, with this opportunity for building change rooms on the Buttrells, we will certainly be able to accommodate all the lady footballers, which currently do not have the facilities at the Colquitt to play their matches. And it's most embarrassing that the largest town in Wales is left without facilities for ladies football. For example, we have Barrytown United under 19 ladies team playing Cardiff, not at their home in the Vale of Glamorgan. And quite honestly, we feel that this is a wonderful opportunity to bring everything together across on the Buttrells site for 11-a-side football, and at the same time, bring the mini sides back from the Buttrells site over to the Colquitt side, where they won't have to rush across that busy road. Yes, there is a crossing, but many children don't take much notice of a crossing. They're either getting there late to a game or whatever, and currently they're rushing to get to the games. So in future, mini football would be played totally on the Colquitt side, which gives them a far better option. With 11-a-side football, the new changing facilities on the Buttrells side, the pitches will not be changed at all. There's adequate accommodation for 10 pitches over there, and subsequently, these matches will be staged in conjunction with the Vale of Glamorgan League, and quite honestly, they will certainly be juniors in the morning, junior boys in the morning, 11-a-side, followed by men from lunchtime on, and then ladies on Sundays. That is the pattern of play throughout South Wales for football at weekends. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and given the fact that having £500,000 on the table to bid for with the Welsh FA, which is quite extraordinary that now the Welsh FA have changed in supporting grassroots football. And to throw this opportunity away would be very, very foolish. And this afternoon, I'm here to really press the importance for footballers in Barry. Across the Vale of Glamorgan, we want better facilities. Of course we do. We always want better facilities. But for not to have the good facilities in your major town is a crime. And we've got to accept the fact that the current Colquitt changing rooms are not up to standard. You've all seen them today. You've had the opportunity to ask questions. And I feel very strongly that having used these facilities going back to 62 and onwards, and having been in football for 62 years, I'm well versed and with the experience of bringing this to you this afternoon. So I would urge every member on this committee tonight to support this application. It's most important. We're not talking about the housing We're talking about our leisure sport this afternoon. The housing will come back down the line if and when that goes ahead, but that will come to a future report to the Cabinet after a consultation is taken later this month. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Gwyn. You gave your age away a bit then too. Right, I'm going to pass you over to Amy because she has a witness statement from Mr. Harvey.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to read a statement on behalf of Mr. Harvey, the chairperson of the Vale of Glamorgan Football League, who was invited to attend the meeting this evening as an expert witness, but has unfortunately had to send his apologies. Firstly, I would like to apologise for not being able to be with you in person this evening. I can confirm that as a league, who I am reliably informed has the largest membership of any voluntary organisation in the Vale of Glamorgan, we are fully supportive of the proposals put forward to the Council's Cabinet on the 22nd of February 2024. I can confirm that the plans were discussed extensively by our committee and that I have been kept informed as the proposal has been developed. We were keen that no usable formal recreation space, i.e. usable football pitches, is compromised by the scheme and believe this has been achieved. We have noted the inclusion of the pump track, but are again supportive of this as we can see such a facility is likely to be popular with young people, will be free to use and available for long hours. We are extremely proud that at present we have approximately 4,000 registered football players in the Vale of Glamorgan that continues to grow. In recent years, the growth, in particular, of women's and girls' football has been incredible, and as a league, we have been keen to embrace this. However, what is clear is that the lack of suitable facilities is holding teams back and can discourage the growth of the game in the Vale of Glamorgan. I don't think too many would argue that the Sports Centre and the Butts are the home of grassroots football in the Vale of Glamorgan. Yet we have facilities at this site that date from the 1960s and are in poor condition, cannot meet current regulations and are, in the main, located on the wrong side of the Calcott Road that divides the two sites. The current facilities mean that it is not possible for clubs to progress as it is. They are blocked from higher leagues due to ground criteria regulations. And as regards suitable women and girls facilities, it is presently impossible to have two official women's games taking place at the same site in Barry due to a lack of suitable changing facilities. The league would like to see a women's league operating in the Vale of Glamorgan in future years, but would need facilities that allow this to happen that the proposals at the Buttrells would provide. We acknowledge that by relocating the changing rooms to the Buttrells site, the existing building can continue to be used, allowing football to continue during the construction period. We also note the car park proposals that will hopefully assist to redistribute the issues faced weekly during the season at the Sports Centre that we know is a source of frustration to residents. We also acknowledge the financial strains on the Council's budget and the need via housing to generate funds for this scheme. However, the opportunity to access funds in grant from the FAW is unprecedented as far as we are aware and should be taken full advantage of for the future generations of footballers in the Vale of Glamorgan. As a league, we would be extremely disappointed and frustrated if opportunity to provide the facilities we feel our members deserve is lost. Kind regards, Mark Harvey, Chairman of the Vale of Glamorgan League.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for your statement, Mr. Harvey. Can I just confirm that Councillor Collins has now joined us? Thank you. Yeah. Right, which moves us on to the public speakers. Thank you very much for attending this evening. It's very much appreciated. You have 3 minutes each, and we will do some points of clarification afterwards in case any of the councillors wish to ask you any questions. And we will start with Mr. Michael Good. Thank you, Mr. Good. Yeah. Press it again. Press it again. Yeah,
Hi.
you're on.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee today and to share my concerns on the current proposals. I'd like to start by showing you a photo of the under-18 girls hockey team from Ysgol Bro Morgannwg, who in March 2023 won the Welsh Schools Hockey Cup. The under-16s from the same school won the cup the same day. This amazing achievement by both teams happened despite losing the hockey pitch at Colcott Sports Centre in 2019, when it was decided to close the facility as the surface was damaged and dangerous to use. So instead of replacing the pitch, we then spent the next 4 years as parents taking the girls to Penarth and Cardiff just to practice and play matches. Currently, the school has been told by the council to play hockey at Pencoitra High School on their new hockey pitch. However, they are unable to book the facilities online. There are no toilets, changing facilities, and has damaged fencing nearby. The proposal mentioned that no green space will be lost. However, a large green playing area at Colcott, adjacent to the 3G football cages, will be replaced by a cycle pump track, meaning the loss of a green space used by dog walkers, informal activities and recreational use. We are not sure on the size of or scale of the pump track, as there is no detail in the proposals. Will it be fenced off or open to the public on all sides? Whilst at the Buttrells, a large section of the playing fields will be removed and replaced by a sports pavilion, boxing gym and 2 car parks. With reference to the playing fields community involvement in disposal decisions Wales Regulation 2015, this document produced by the Welsh Government requires a local authority to publish information on the impact of the proposed disposal of a playing field on the health and well-being of the community, by reference to a number of key strategies, plans and assessments for the areas in which the playing field is located. I'd like to know if the council has started on this process with reference to these regulations. If not, when will it begin? So far, there's been no consultation with the local communities. We are promised a drop-in session sometime in April, but we've not been given a date or a time. With 2 very large developments planned, why has there not been any informal discussions with the local residents to ask for ideas and solutions to the current sites? Rather than asking us what we want, we are being told this is what you are having, and there are no other options being considered. As we are the ones that have to live in the area, know the issues and want to retain and enhance the facilities at both sites. Over the weekend, I talked to several people who live along Woodham Park and whose houses overlook the Buttrells Fields. In October 1998 and again in July 2007, around 9 houses along this street were flooded by water from the Buttrells Fields. And since the only remedial works put in place is a long ditch along the entire street, this meant that they catch all the rainwater running off the field. This is the location of the new large car park at the Buttrells. So local residents are concerned that this issue is not being mentioned in the proposals. Nobody's been in contact with them in terms of their views or concerns. There's a threat that the flooding could return.
3 minutes, Mr. Good, if you could.
Due to the runoff from the car park. Shall I stop? Oh, there's 2 more. We are trying to be positive and find something good about these proposals. However, the scale, cost of 2.5 million and significance to the 2 surrounding communities needs more consideration and communication. I thought that the proposal would divide both areas, but instead it has brought both communities closer together.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Thank you very much. Does any councillors have any points of clarification for Mr. Good? Councillor Gwyn-John.
May I ask a question, please? Thank you. Could I just clarify, Mr. Good? You mentioned the loss of a 3G pitch at the Colcott Sports Centre. Was that a statement you made?
No. The pump track will be behind the 3G pitch at Colcott Sports Centre.
Okay, thank you.
Ian, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Good. You say that there's no toilets or shower facilities at Pencoitra. Is that you haven't been allowed to use them?
Well, they have in the school, but the issue is if you're using it after school, the school's going to be closed. Or if you go over to the pitch at Pencoitra, what they're finding is there's a distance between the school and the pitches, basically. So you've got children walking back and forth. They're not involved in the school as such. If you want to encourage them to go from one school to another to play hockey and other sports as well, if you want them to go from Pencoitra to play rugby, there's an issue in terms of access to facilities. So the teachers that I've spoken to, the PE teachers at Pencoitra, at Bro Morgannwg and Pencoitra, are saying we're not able to get close by the facilities that they need to run activities on a kind of sustainable level. So to share things sounds in practice, you know, a good idea, but it's not practical.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody, any other councillors have any questions? No. Dave, would you like to come in now or at the end?
I think it might be helpful if I just clarify in terms of the toilets and changing facilities that have been mentioned. Obviously, a new head teacher has recently been appointed that looks after both Whitmore and Pencoitra. That head teacher has confirmed to us that obviously when school use is going on, facilities such as change rooms and toilets he would expect to be available, and he would also expect the same facilities to be available to any club or organisation looking to hire the Pencoitra field. We don't have an automatic booking system for that, but the telephone number and the arrangements in terms of booking that particular pitch have been available. Because there is no active hockey club in Barry at the present time, unsurprisingly and quite sadly at the present time, we haven't had any inquiries to use that pitch outside of school times for hockey purposes.
Thank you, Dave. Mr. Good, did you say that there was a hockey team which you have to transport children to Penarth?
Yeah, well, at the moment, because of the facilities, when they closed the Colcott's facility, we had to move to Cardiff, to Penarth, to Dinas Powys, to Pencoed, to practice and to train, and we did that for 4 years, basically. And we've got 150 children in the school, at one school, at Ysgol Bro Morgannwg, which is literally a 5-minute walk away, playing hockey on a regular basis. So the teachers have to decide which half of the group they take over in the minibus and leave the other half in the school, basically, because there's no room.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Does any other councillors have any other questions? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
Emma Goodjohn.
Mr. Good, can I ask, I should ask Dave, is the surface at Bro Morgannwg School, is it suitable to, is it a multi-use facility? So can hockey be practised on that pitch, please?
Can we wait with the questions for the officers till the end?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Councillor Goodjohn, if
Yeah.
that's okay, because we have other speakers, but we'll come back to that in the debate. Is that okay? Thank you.
Right. In that case, if no other councillors have questions of Mr. Good, then we'll move on to Mr. Glyn Pooley. Thank you, Glyn.
Hello, thank you, Janice, and thank you everyone for spending some time to talk and listen to this in a kind and open way, of course. So I'd like to offer a bigger perspective maybe on this. We've been focusing on individual detail at the moment, particularly football and hockey, other active sports. But I'd like to ask, how, in any way, can a proposal to build houses and car parks on green and recreational land in a densely populated town help with people's well-being? During the recent pandemic, shutdown restrictions, people were desperate to get out for a walk near green space. Has our local council forgotten this already? With an ever-increasing older population in the Vale, during the last census, over 65%, people are over age 65. In the 10 years of the last census, it went up by 24.9%. So these people need access close to where they live of informal recreation as well as formal. Prevention's better than cure, of course. If this is not taken into consideration, the impact on our social services, on well-being and health service, etc., is absolutely immense. There's an ever-growing body of medical evidence to support the benefits of sharing time with others and participating in physical activity and a green environment. Back in 2010, there was over 70 research papers by the British Medical Council that have emphasised that spending time Countdown, yeah, great. Okay, we're back on. Thank you for your patience. Start the clock. So the British Medical Council have emphasised the role of being in nature and having access to nature, particularly for older people, in terms of recovery of depression, stress and mental fatigue. And that they state that the public health planning needs to be informed by their evidence base. Physical activity within these green spaces and direct action, of course, have demonstrated to have significant health benefits. Now, the playing fields and disposal decision of regulations in 2015 by the Welsh Government, they say this physical activity has such health benefits that they affect coronary heart disease, strokes, type 2 diabetes and obesity. And it has a positive impact on these injuries associated with aging and helping people to lead independent lives. Now, with this increasing aging population in our densely populated town,
3 minutes.
This becomes essential. Okay, the Vale Glamorgan has a well-being plan that states they're looking for a more resilient and greener Vale. So how could putting houses on a densely populated area create a greener Vale?
Thank you, Mr. Pooley. I'm sorry I have to stop you there. Does any councillors have any points of clarifications, not statements, for Mr. Pooley? Anybody?
No hands.
Dave, do you want to come in there or at the end? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pooley. Moving on, Mr. John Giles.
Thank you. I don't think this is just about football, but I do agree that the facilities at the sports centre and the condition they're in is a crime. But the people accountable for that crime are the people who sit in this chamber, not just today, but perhaps over the last 30 years. It's highly irresponsible of the council to consider these plans without first consulting with the residents who live around the sports centre. It is our responsibility as custodians of this town to ensure that the recreational facilities are maintained and protected for this and future generations. The sports centre and its grounds, along with the Butts Field, are not only sporting facilities, but they are spaces for non-sporting recreation and contribute to the health and general well-being of many people within our community. Reducing that space so radically will undoubtedly have an adverse effect on people's mental and physical health. Green spaces are not just for sport. They are places of solace for everyone to enjoy, and once gone, they are gone forever. Why move the site? Despite decades of neglect, the sports centre building is still sound, despite what you say here today. The parking, the drainage, the sewage, the power supply, and the other infrastructure to the building are sound and in place. The main all-weather pitch is established, albeit requires modernisation. The 5G pitches are new, so the bare bones of the site are still fit for purpose. Inside the building, there's 14 changing rooms, both male and female shower and toilet facilities, an existing boxing gym, who incidentally don't want to move, a badminton hall which can be converted with a mezzanine floor into a community centre or dedicated female changing rooms. Additionally, the facility is well established with a road infrastructure with easy access off Colker Road. Investment in this existing site would not only be considerably cheaper, but it would also create far less disruption and not cause the traffic issues that an additional 200 plus vehicles onto the Butts estate would. Please don't underestimate the impact of that many vehicles on such small roads. I have lived in the Colquhoun all my life. The Colquhoun car park already overflows onto the surrounding streets and indeed the streets around the Butts. Isolating parking to that one area will not only be torture to the residents, but it will be danger to pedestrians. It's been quoted tonight, and I'll quote it again. and that's in 2015, the Welsh Government published guidelines for this type of development. It states all playing fields, whether owned by public, private or voluntary organisations, should be protected from development except when. It gives 3 points. The first is where facilities can be retained and enhanced through redevelopment of a small part of the site. This is in no way a small part of the site. It's well over 50% of the sports centre grounds. We lose parking, the hall, the large all-weather pitch and a great deal of grass space used daily by local people. Point 2, alternative provision.
Mr Giles, can you sum up, please?
I'll be very quickly. Alternative provision or equivalent community benefit is available elsewhere. The alternative provision being considered is not an equivalent community benefit. It is potentially just a sporting benefit, but in no way benefits the community as a whole. The recreation area of the sports centre is being reduced by over 50%, and the recreation area of the butts is being reduced by around 20%, with the construction of a new building and a car park.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr Giles, I'm going to have to stop you there. But
okay,
thank you very much for all your points. Yeah, well done. Is Mrs. Sorry, first of all, do we have any clarifications any councillors want to ask Mr. Giles? Any questions? Councillor Gwyn-John, as long as it's not a statement.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I just clarify again? You mentioned that we'd be losing a 3G at the sports centre. That is not the case.
No, I mentioned we'd be losing the all-weather pitch.
The 3Gs are staying untouched.
I know that.
And I just want to clarify as well that when the car park was built at Barry Sports Centre, it was green field before that. It was all green field. So you had a large car park of hard standing on green field.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor John. Not allowed to
the whole of Barry was once a green field.
Is Mrs. Lauren Hawkins here?
I'm afraid Mrs. Hawkins hasn't joined us, Chair. So we'll need to move to our fifth speaker.
Oh, that's a shame. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to Mr. Andrew Bevan. Thank you, Andrew.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. Just going to jump ahead straight to some of the points which were made today around the FAW funding. As you understand from the report, that's up to £500,000, which seems like quite the sizable amount, which I would imagine would allow redevelopment of the existing site and not see the need for the council to sell off the land any further. The key point I'd make around this as well is that I'm an avid football fan myself. I'm a fully paid up member of the FAW. Have been all of my adult life and fully support. As the father of 3 young daughters, more importantly, I fully support there to be adequate facilities for young girls and young women to be able to change and enjoy the sports. But I also want them to have the opportunity to play other sports other than football to find out what they like at their age. And one of those would be the all-terrain pitch. I'm going to jump straight back to my original point I wanted to start off on about how the executive summary states that the existing facilities have fallen into disrepair and do not meet the requirements of all customers. I'd argue that the new plans don't meet the requirements of all customers, as some will be given notice to leave with no provisions made for where those services will be offered from in the future. The nursery being one of those, or if I may call it by its correct name, the Kilt Maithrin. The aim of the Kilt Maithrin is to promote the education and development of children from 2 years old to school age Welsh medium education, enabling him or her to become bilingual. Arguably, this makes it more than just a nursery in the way it's described in this report. In the report as well, it also says that there'll be assistance for finding additional premises, and that there's also several community centres in the area. Whilst I would say that several in the immediate area is a bit of a stretch, I can't help but feel the council have overlooked the fact that the Kilk Maithrin actually provides wraparound care to Ysgol Bro Morgannwg. Every day, the incredible women who run the Kilk walk a number of preschool age children from the Colcott Sports Centre to Ysgol Bro Morgannwg for their afternoon nursery session. As you can imagine, with children of that age, such a walk from a further distance is completely impractical and will have a detrimental impact on this service. As an aspiring Welsh speaker myself and a supporter of the Welsh Government's initiative to have 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050, this is sad to see, given that I've already seen my own children take the first steps to becoming bilingual via this avenue and hope that many more can benefit in this way. On the subject of the building being used by young children, section 1.3 states that the building is in extremely poor condition and it's beyond this expected lifespan. I find it appalling that the council have allowed a property belonging to them to be used to serve its residents to fall into an extremely poor condition, their words, and be used beyond this expected lifespan. A building which is used on a daily basis by the young children I've already mentioned. The cynic in me can't help but speculate whether the council have deliberately allowed this to happen in order for this exact eventuality, a money-grabbing exercise to sell off for housing. One area of the report makes reference to there being a need for the ATP, the ATP as being redundant. I know we've touched on it already, but I think that's ludicrous. I know there's other facilities there, but if we've got another versatile facility which can be used for other sports, it seems frivolous to get rid of it. You say it's not been used for 5 years. Can we just acknowledge that at least half of this time has been blighted by social distancing and COVID regulations when many facilities weren't able to be used? The advantage of build on the Buttrell site means that users will no longer be required to walk across Colquitt Road to access the pitches at the Buttrells, which has been a safety concern. That's a direct quote from this report. It's unfortunate this proposal doesn't elaborate on those safety concerns, because I urge the council to assess this safety concern from the perspective of all residents and not just footballers on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Might I add that there is a light-based crossing system. I'll be keen to hear some of the statistics for the numbers of accidents which have occurred to highlight this as a safety concern. Housing crisis. I know you say it's not about housing, but it is when it's going to impact us like this. Housing development also provide much needed new homes in Barry. This feels like another ill-informed statement. We've seen for over a decade all houses being built on the waterfront area. There's a huge development at Atlantic Park, and there's now plans.
3 minutes, Mr. Bevan, if you could sum up, please.
You say about need for housing specifically in the Colquitt area. It was in September 2023 that there was plans published to demolish the college building and build 140 new houses there. The infrastructure can't cope there already. And on top of that, in terms of developments in the area, White Farm was never adopted by the council because of subsidence issues. Will this development be adopted by the council?
Because you've gone off topic, I'm afraid, but appreciate your points very much. Thank you. Do any councillors have any questions of Mr. Bevan? Anybody? No. Dave, do you want to come in there? I'll wait till the end. No?
No, I'm quite happy to leave it to the debate and answer any questions at that point to the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. You're most welcome to stay now for our council debate. Right, non-committee members to address Councillor Johnson as call-in member first. Would you like to come in as you called it in, Ian?
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Na I roi
Thank you, Jay. I'll give you a moment to put the headphones on before I begin.
Phone's already on. That says that I'll give you a moment to put the headphones on.
Yep.
Is that working for everybody? I'm sure you'll be able to understand me. So I'll just start. To be honest, I was expecting to start the item today, and so I do need to adapt the matters I'm going to cover. Couple of points just before I make a proper start. So I'm Councillor Ian Johnson. I'm not a member of this committee, so I don't have any right to vote. So I'm going to speak now. I represent the Buttrells ward in Barry, but for some reason, Buttrells ward doesn't include the Buttrells fields or even the estate towards the north of Barry Road. I've written to the Electoral Commission to change the name of the area because, to all intents and purposes, I represent Barry City Centre, Town Centre. I belong to the football community in Vale of Glamorgan, and because of this, I don't see this as any bias. I see this as something where I need to ensure that the best facilities are available for every sport in Barry and in the Vale in a wider sense. I'm going to cover a couple of topics which have already been covered by other councillors or by the speakers from the public. The reason to call this in for wider discussion is to ensure that the conversation does take place and to give the voice to ordinary people to speak on the topic. If we leave this just to Cabinet, it's not possible for ordinary people to be able to discuss things which are obviously of importance to them. So we're here today to discuss the principles, perhaps as opposed to detail, because if this does go through today, more detail will be forthcoming as part of the consultation on the developments either on the Colquitt side or on the Buttrell side. If we consider the history and background of the Colquitt site in particular, this was part of the Barry North development, the end of the 50s and beginnings of the 60s, which included the college site and the comprehensive and primary school sites for Barry boys. Of course, those sports centres were opened in 1963, so it's over 60 years old. I went to the site earlier today for a walk around, and I noticed that there wasn't much change since I first played there in the 80s. I'd like to support a number of speakers saying that it's very sad to see that there was no development of the site and the facilities over the decades. But we've reached the point where the facilities are not acceptable for clubs to be and to be promoted and for the women to be playing there. I'd like to know what will happen for other users on the site, such as Bethesda Cilchmeithrin, how this will work and how this will work alongside, as we heard earlier, Ysgol Bro Morgannwg and Welsh Medium Education generally in the north of Barry. Heard a little bit, I think, about the hockey field. I'd like to hear from the officers a little bit more about demand from schools on those sites, Whitmore and Bro Morgannwg, to understand, because there are two elements to this. One is educational needs and one is recreational use. And according to Mr. Nevitt, there's no demand for recreation beyond what's available in Pencoedra. I'd like to hear more about the educational demand and what discussion has taken place around this. The third, I've heard things about the track and for the play area. I'm not sure if I need more about this and understanding of where the funding is coming from to develop the track and how many users are expected to be using this and whether there's a business plan available for this or is this just speculation. And my last point on this is to consider implications perhaps going further than the discussion today around flooding and water coming off of the Buttrell's fields. The reason, if you ask me, I'm not sure, I don't have any evidence, but perhaps the reason that there's no development for fields on the south side of the Buttrell's fields is because of where the water goes and behind the houses and on wooden parks. So perhaps it might not be part of the conversation today because this is about the principle, and flooding would be part of any planning application, but I would like to have some sort of assurance that this has been taken into consideration before that does reach this point. How we protect property on wooden park and so forth if the council does go forward with a car park instead of the green fields on that side of Buttrell's. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. As I said, the purpose of today is to hear the evidence from the council and if the committee today does support the principle, I'm sure there'll be much further discussion on the details because the local residents and the town generally will want to hear that level of detail. Thank you very much.
Can take your headsets off now for the moment. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. Very, very good points you've made this evening. Right, we are now moving on to any other committee members wish to address or ask questions?
Any other non-committee members?
Any other non-committee members first? Do we have any non-committee members on? Yeah. Councillor Belinda Lovelock-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair.
Does everybody, is it okay if we hear Councillor Belinda Lovelock? As a look, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. For those of you who may not know, I'm Councillor Belinda Lovelock-Edwards, and I'm one of the Devon ward councillors here this evening speaking. Thank you for giving me the courtesy to speak on this matter. For those that do know me, tend to know that I hold cynical views when hearing the terms improvements and proposals put together in any document. However, as my fellow Devon Ward Councillor Emma Goodjohn and I have stated, we very much welcome this call-in by Councillor Johnson, as it can only help widen the debate and hopefully has allowed the officer, Dave Nevitt, tonight to give factual information that will help this committee and the wider community in understanding the rationale and why this proposal sets out a clear direction of travel to give future generations the dignity and investment we all would want. Any proposal that effects change across a neighbourhood brings with it emotive arguments, and whether we as Devon councillors agree or not with all the points made this evening, or indeed in numerous items of communication this past month, it is welcomed and important. This is democracy in action, and the public has a fundamental right to hold us all to account. What is being put forward is a proposal, and as councillors for Devon, we are determined to engage with as many residents as possible during this process. Rest assured, we as the councillors in Devon for the past 2 years are determined to ensure that we are given the detail that we have open and transparent information that will include any separate planning application regarding housing. Tonight is about the principle of the proposal, as we know that our residents are entitled to that. Moving to the proposal itself, as councillors, we received numerous complaints from residents around the Buttrells Community Centre and in neighbouring Woodden Park throughout the football season. I have spent, as a parent, the past 9 years having to navigate between Calcutta and Buttrells for twice-weekly football sessions. It's time I'll never get back. I have witnessed the chaos of parking, the children refusing to use the facilities and rather changing the car, and having to deal with wet, bedraggled boys with nowhere warm, safe or accessible in which to change. But my son had that chance, unlike girls of his age who were rarely seen on the pitch. This is now thankfully changing, and this evening we have a critical chance to stand up for those budding Jess Fishlocks or future Barrytown women team players. We cannot shy away from the fact that the number of young girls offending for the first time has increased, and this was borne out in a recent Youth and Justice report. Providing space, facilities and above all else the opportunity to engage in such a global sport can possibly give young girls and women a positive outlet. We're also very much aware that having built an inclusive environment at the Buttrells Community Centre, we need to give as many children and adults the opportunity to consider participating in grassroots football or other field sports. It is equally woeful that no child with a disability can even contemplate this at present. Accessibility is a must, not a luxury add-on, and this is a key factor around these proposals. As Dave Nevitt has already explained, the cost to do this at the current Calcott site is not feasible, and from a local councillor's perspective does not give value for money. Surely everyone here this evening wants to work together to change this. Surely everyone here this evening can see that there is nothing underhand taking place, or that we may be robbing our own community of green space or sports facilities. There is so much evidence around us, and sadly increasingly lived experience too, that the children and young adults of the Vale are struggling with their mental health, with their overall health and well-being, and this proposal gives future lives free at the point of use access to sports that are currently out of reach. And as a committed sports fan, I can only give my full support to this. These are genuine opportunities that are highly unlikely to factor again, and if we don't seize the financial hand reaching out from the Football Association of Wales, then we are possibly failing future generations of girls and disabled children from becoming the sports leaders for Wales. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Belinda Lovelock-Edwards. Any other non-council members wish to speak? No. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to. Is there any councillors now that would like to speak?
Are we moving to committee members, Chair?
Yeah, to committee members. Emma?
Thank you, Chair. As a councillor for Devon Ward, I'm keen to represent the views and concerns of the community of my ward, but I am also aware that people need to be correctly informed. There's been a lot of talk with anger from a few about this proposal over the last few weeks, particularly on social media. But sadly, I have seen that this has involved some misinformation that has led people to the wrong conclusions about the proposals. It has been claimed that the council are trying to sneak this development through, but this is a proposal which is public information published on the council website for all to see. It is an initial proposal in its early stages to highlight a need and rationale for a development, not a planning application that has been submitted. There has also been indication that there will be development in areas of greenland that are clearly not in the proposals, given the wrong impression of this development. From what I can see, there is much that makes sense in the proposal. The old Colescott Sports Centre is no longer adequate provisions for changing, and something needs to be done. There are already newer sports facilities at Colescott that can facilitate the sports activities on that site. For community activities, there are 3 other community centres within 1 mile of the Colescott Sports Centre. That will be Highlight Park Community Centre, Colescott Community Centre and Buttrell's Community Centre. And as far as artificial pitches, there are new facilities at Whitmore, Bromwell and Penquatry schools, which are available for public use. There is a general need for a change in facility at Buttrell's playing field. It is unacceptable that young people are having to cross the busy Colescott Road to access Buttrell's sport field from the limited changing room. This leads to many to park in Buttrell's Community Centre car park, resulting in the car park being overfull during busy football times. As chair of Buttrell's Community Centre, I can confirm that our volunteers have described to me how they regularly see people changing and relieving themselves around the side of our community centre, even in cold weather, due to there being no changing or toilet provision where it is needed, where large numbers of people are playing sports on Buttrell's field. This is just not acceptable. These proposals will bring dignity for all, including facilities for women and girls who wish to play. Our volunteers have rebuilt the community back into Buttrell's Community Centre with regular daily activities. It is thriving. I am never a fan of developing on green spaces, but considering this proposal will infringe on only a very small amount of the existing playing field, still leaving the vast majority as it is. The proposal of a new facility and the expansion of the car park will be very beneficial and will help alleviate the amount of on-street parking around the area and make it easier for the community centre to coexist with the football community. The committee sees the proposals as generally good and a good thing for the community centre. I am always keen to see improvements in our area. The opportunity of attracting funding to assist in improving the quality of changing provision at this site is something we should support, as we would rather see this investment in Barry rather than another area of Wales. As councillor for Devon Ward and dealing with residents' problems on a daily basis, as my fellow councillor will confirm, Belinda, Most of our reoccurring and ongoing problems are linked with antisocial behaviour, homelessness and the need for adequate housing. We have a lack of play areas generally in Devon, and residents recently highlighted demand for older young people's play facilities. We are desperately in need for facilities for older young people who may not engage in other leisure or more organised sports. The Knapp skate park has proven extremely popular and a great benefit for mental health, but we have no such facilities in the north of Barry. These proposals will provide more free opportunities for the local community to enjoy the open spaces with the addition of new facilities such as a playground and pump track. We are listening to the concerns and opinions of all our residents, and we are here to support the best we can. I am also very mindful to support and represent members of our community who have quieter voices, and those less fortunate, more vulnerable, and those who find it more difficult to engage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Emma Goodjohn. Does any other councillor? Councillor Jane Norman?
Thank you, Chair. As member of this committee, and I'm also a member of the Learning and Culture Scrutiny, and one of the big problems we have with teenage girls is keeping them, encouraging them to carry on with sport. And if we can do anything by upgrading these facilities for young women to retain dignity when taking part in sport, I think everything should be done to hang on to it. And I think this gives us the opportunity to build good training facilities and access for these young women, and encouraging them to take part in an ever-growing sport in the area and can do nothing but good for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor on the Scrutiny Committee wish to say anything or ask any questions? No? Okay. Neil?
Yes, thanks, Chair. The comments made by my fellow committee members and fellow councillors about the improvements for women's sport is much needed. I'd like to thank Dave for the site visit this morning to look at the state of the Colcott changing rooms, and that they did appear dire at the moment, and much in need of improvement. I can't see that being allowed or possible within budget to do in the present site. The potential for funding support from the FEW for improvement of women's football is to be welcomed and an opportunity to be grasped. As I understand it, the boxing club on the site, and Dave, you can correct me afterwards, but as I understand it, there is discussion with them from reading the report that they will remain in improved facilities, and that is being looked at and negotiated with them at this time. The school, the nursery school, moved there comparatively recently. I mean, comparatively in terms of the time that it's been in existence, and it has had a number of moves. I'm led to understand in the past, and that they will be supported and helped to find a new location, I believe is what's been said. I therefore I welcome the report. I welcome the details. I note the comments that people have made, and I would therefore move that we endorse this report.
Before we move on to your endorsement, I think there will be a couple of recommendations first. If any of the councillors have anything else to say or any questions they would like to ask. Dave? No? Well, I agree that everything that's been spoken about as far as new facilities that are needed, I absolutely agree with. But I would like to recommend that this goes back to Cabinet, that we see the estimates for a building, for building a new facility, compared with the modifications of the Colquitt site. Because without actually seeing those figures, I don't see how we can make a decision which is best value. Bring you in now. Before I do my next recommendation, I'll bring in the leader of the council, Councillor Liz Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. I would be very happy for Cabinet to consider anything that the committee wants to put forward, but I would give a bit of clarification there. We have a lot of conversation as this is already a plan. It's not a plan, it's a proposal. There is a distinct difference. A proposal, I'll give you an example. A proposal was the discussions we had about Western Gateway, the Broad Street Clinic area just by this building, about building a replacement clinic there, providing more older people's accommodation. That went to Cabinet in, I think, 2016, if I'm not mistaken. We will shortly be moving that forward because it's taken that length of time to get the agreement of the Health Board, to get to the agreement of Welsh Government, to come up with plans, to look forward to what we're doing. And there will hopefully be planning applications later this year. But we talked about our ambition, we talked about where we wanted to go back that many years ago. When you don't have statutory, when it's not a statutory provision and you don't have set out funding for something, then there is a challenge to delivering new facilities. We've had conversation tonight about the skate park at the Knapp. If I'm not mistaken, and Dave will probably nod at me, I think it was 5 funding streams that that Dave managed to stitch together, which would be from the lottery, from Sport Wales, from a private charitable trust, from the Taylor family's fundraising, and from ourselves as a council. It takes a lot of time. Different funders will fund different things. If you don't have buildings that are zero or low carbon, fit for the 21st century, ones that meet equality legislation, that expand the use, then you won't get funding for it. And also, I would question, don't our young people deserve the best now? So this, if it becomes a plan, will need to go to planning permission. It will need to have a fully costed plan for it to turn into a plan rather than a proposal. And it will come back, no doubt, to Cabinet on numerous occasions for the various parts of it and to agree funding proposals before it actually went forward. It could be that alternatives are not fundable. But as I said, whatever recommendations this committee decides to send back to Cabinet, if any, Cabinet will be only too pleased to consider them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Christine Cave.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to second your proposal for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cave. Councillor Good.
Thank you. I respect the recommendation, but what about the facilities at Buttrell's? Because at the moment there's no facilities for any toilets or changing, and at the moment my volunteers that are opening up the community centre for children's parties are being faced with people naked or relieving themselves. So although I respect the recommendation, where in the costings will Buttrell's come into this? Thank you, Chair.
This is only a proposal at the moment, so I've been told. So you can bring that up at a later point. Yes, I'd like to bring Councillor Ian Johnson back in.
Sorry, just quickly, Chair. I mean, I did ask a series of questions around some of the more practical elements of this, and I don't think we've had a chance to have those answers from Mr. Nevitt yet. I don't know if that's appropriate to get answers on things before you start pulling together recommendations. But
I was going to make what you said a recommendation to go to the new proposal when it goes back to Cabinet. But Dave, if you'd like to come in now and answer Councillor Johnson's questions.
Ian, I made some notes, and if I miss anything, please feel free, and I will try to deal with those. There's been some interesting points raised tonight that I wasn't aware of or would disagree with. The comment that was made regarding the boxing club, obviously I've engaged with the boxing club, and the indications I've had from them have been positive, and they actually see the opportunity via future grants with the opportunity to expand their facilities. So I need to put that into some sort of context. In terms of the flooding that was mentioned, a very interesting point has been made on that, in terms of this may actually provide an opportunity to alleviate some of the issues that have been faced by residents in the past via the planning process and by the requirements that will be placed upon ourselves if we were to progress with the new changing block at the Buttrells and the new car parking facility. And they would certainly be considered, and there is a requirement to consider those as part of the planning process. Regarding the nursery, I think, as quite rightly said, it's possibly been there a little bit longer than most people appreciate, because it was relocated at the time that the Alexandra Gardens Community Centre, which is where it was traditionally based, was redeveloped. The objective was that the nursery would return to what is now known as the Margaret Alexander Community Centre, but the nursery opted to stay put, knowing that their tenancy wasn't as secure at the sports centre, because even at that time we were obviously looking at the future of that particular site, and the site where they are currently occupied isn't without its own issues in terms of not having an outdoor area, etc. Obviously we're very keen to ensure that the opportunity is there for the nursery to continue. I have been in dialogue with colleagues in education who are responsible for that type of provision, and I know they're very keen to find alternative premises, hopefully close to the school as they are at the existing time. And I note very much the comment that was made in terms of being able to walk children to that particular provision. Obviously that didn't exist before when it was based at Alexandra Gardens Community Centre, but I appreciate none of the pupils that went there are still going to the nursery, because I wouldn't like to hazard a guess, but I would expect it to be well over 10 years since that relocation actually occurred. In terms of some of the comments that have been made in regards to the existing building, our architects did look at the existing building. They confirmed it would require a complete internal demolition, new roofs, new services, etc., in terms of new plant. And the reality was it would be very hard even then to provide the individual changing rooms with showers, with toilet facilities that meet the requirements of the FAW. Again, when showing the FAW those facilities, we would still not have a facility that is probably going to be fit for use for the X number of years that a new facility would actually provide. I can't comment with the FAW would grant aid that if we were able to come up with a plan in terms of doing that, but the indications were they were greatly infused by the Buttrell site and the opportunities that actually represented. And I think the point has been made very well this evening in terms of women and girls sport, in terms of that particular growth, and in terms of providing facilities that we would like to see our residents being able to access. And there are very strict guidelines now in terms of changing room provision. And if you don't meet that requirement, obviously there wouldn't be grant funding available. And again, the point has been made, this is almost unprecedented in terms of the opportunity that is available to us at the current time. In terms of school provision, I'm probably not the best person to answer questions in school provision because it doesn't fall under our remit. That is obviously within education. I would, however, make the point that I made at the beginning when introducing the report, that the artificial turf pitches provided at all the schools are suitable as practice facilities for hockey. I also have a statement from the executive head of Whitmore and Pencoitra, which states that they haven't got a requirement in terms of the hockey pitch or the former hockey pitch at the Colcott Sports Centre, and that they feel their new facilities that they've been provided with are of quality and obviously meet all their particular requirements. So I note the comments that were made earlier in terms of school sports, and I'd like to pass my congratulations on to the achievements that have been made in terms of hockey by individual schools. But in terms of school curricular activities and extracurricular activities, it isn't something that personally we're responsible for. We have sports development officers that work with schools and are very keen to encourage opportunities in terms of physical activity. And as I alluded to earlier, we are very keen to work with local people interested in re-establishing a hockey club in Barry, because I think it's a town of the size of Barry should have a hockey club, particularly as we've got the facilities to accommodate them at the Pencoitra artificial turf pitch. I probably could go on, Ian, but there's probably a good point to stop unless I've missed anything specific that you raised.
Councillor Johnson, does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Goodjohn.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second Councillor Thomas to go to the vote, please.
Thank you. Recommendations first, yeah.
If I may, Chair, just to clarify, obviously you've had the recommendation you've raised for comparison estimates was moved and seconded first. So we'd need to deal with that motion. Now you have a second of your second. You now have two motions on the table. So we need to deal with the first recommendation.
The first recommendation was to be able to send back to Cabinet that we would like to see the estimates for building a new facility compared with the costings and for modification to the Colquitt site, without which how can we make a decision which is best value. I realise that this is just a proposal, but if we don't send anything back to Cabinet, then the proposal will move on, and without the questions at this stage that we want answered. I mean, they will be answered eventually, I'm sure, at the next stage, but it would be very reassuring, I'm sure, for residents, especially those in Buttrell's Road residents who are really concerned about traffic issues. So anyway, going back, I digress. So going back to the first recommendation is that we see the costings, the estimates for the building, a new facility compared with the modifications, costings to the Colquitt site. I've had a seconder. Can we
speak on this?
Councillor Thomas? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I don't actually see the benefit of this particular recommendation, to be truthful. It's going to consultation anyway, we've been told, and that the whole thing is during that process. It will be fully discussed. It will then go back to Cabinet again. I would expect that Cabinet at that time would in terms of costings, it's been explained that we are looking for funding partners, and that we don't have a full set of full suite of funding partners yet. And so I don't see that it's possible for the funding streams to be delineated at this time and that can take some months, if not years, to be forthcoming. Whereas the principle of improved facilities, which is what this committee has been asked to consider, I think is self-evident, and therefore I don't see a need for the recommendation as you put it forward. Sorry.
Well, you know, we're not talking about recommending looking into finding funding partners. We're looking into actually finding out how much it would actually cost to redo the Colquitt Sports Centre. I don't see as that is harmful to anybody in any which way.
You can go.
So I'm going to put that to a vote. Sorry, Dave, did you want to come in?
I do think I just need to provide some clarification, as I've mentioned earlier. Obviously, our initial thoughts were to refurbish the existing building. The comments that we've had back from our property section is that it's very, very unlikely that we would be able to remodel that to meet the requirements that exist for football and other outdoor sports at the present time. That the age of the building in terms of refurbishing it would be a short-term solution when we would be
Please be quiet, I'll have to clear it. Thank you.
Would be a more short-term solution in terms of expenditure, and it is highly unlikely that we would be able to attract the grant aid that we've mentioned from the FAW Trust in terms of that. In fact, I know it would be impossible because the deadline has passed for those particular grant applications.
Thank you, Dave. Councillor Marianne Cope.
Thank you, Chair. The thing that was concerning me about this is, will it hold up anything? Because when you put in for a grant application, there are usually limitations on how long that, if you are successful, certain things have to happen. So I've got no objection with this going back to Cabinet for the costings that you've asked for, because it's open and transparent and that's what we need. My question is, does that stop anything else going ahead? Or can those two things be done in tandem?
Which two things in tandem?
Well, whatever's going to happen from now, whatever happens at this meeting, this isn't the end of the road, because we've already alluded to planning and consultations. So does your proposal about something going to Cabinet mean that nothing else will happen, no consultation will start, and nothing else will be done depending on the outcome of this meeting? Or does it mean, depending on the outcome of this meeting, whether or not it goes to Cabinet, everything else can just continue in the background, public consultation, for example?
Thank you, Marianne. Amy?
Just for clarification, and I hope this answers your question, Councillor Cowp, but there were recommendations set out in the report. So Cabinet have made 11 recommendations in relation to that. Those decisions cannot progress or move forward until the call-in procedure has been concluded. So at the moment, that's the situation we're in, whereas we're on pause, if you like, for those recommendations from Cabinet. And as a committee, you can endorse that, so those can start the processes that are related to those recommendations, subject to what's been confirmed this evening, that there would be significantly more consultation, public and Cabinet, on each of those different stages in relation to the development. Or you can set a recommendation back to Cabinet, and that recommendation would go back with that report to Cabinet for them to make a subsequent decision, as was set out by the Chair at the start of the meeting. So I hope that answers your question. Does that do so?
Councillor Cope? We lost her. Councillor Cope, does that answer your question?
Councillor Cowp?
So,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing can progress at the moment. It's the recommendations, the decisions made by Cabinet have been put on hold, subject to the call-in procedure. So those of our officers would not be able to implement anything at the current time until a final decision is made.
If I agreed with the recommendations that the Chair has made,
if you if any councillor agrees with the recommendation, we will have to go to vote because it's been moved and seconded. If that motion was carried via vote, then that recommendation, as worded by the chair, would go back with this report to Cabinet to the next scheduled Cabinet meeting, and Cabinet would have to make a final decision at that time. Yes, so you can either...
Nothing else could progress until that happened.
That's correct.
Thank you. I'm clear now. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Councillor Christine Cave.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to come in and say how I really don't agree with your Deputy Chair this evening, Councillor Neil Thomas's argument about why your proposal recommendation shouldn't go ahead. Because surely a consultation, a full consultation with everybody, all the stakeholders who are interested in this and the wider public really can't take place until everybody's in full knowledge of all and full the full details of everything that this proposal involves, and that includes the finances. So I, you know, if I hadn't already seconded your recommendation, I would be certainly doing it again, and I most strongly disagree with Councillor Thomas's comments.
Thank you, Councillor Cave. Right, if nobody else has anything else they'd like to say, I would like to put my recommendation to a vote. Can I see any hands up that are going to support, please? Yeah, yeah, please. Let's move into an electronic vote. Can the committee bear with it for one moment while we set it up, please?
Okay, committee, just to reiterate, shortly you will be presented with an electronic vote. This vote will only be present for members of the committee. For those members who are present in the chamber, your desktop microphone will ask you to vote for, against or abstain. You are voting for the recommendation as raised by the chair of the committee to be represented to Cabinet. For those who are voting from the committee remotely this evening, on the right-hand side of your screen under the Vote tab, you will also be presented with the for, against or abstain. So this is for the recommendation as raised by the chair that has been formally seconded, and I am starting the vote now. So for the benefit of those at home and observing in the chamber, the votes are currently being collected and are viewable live to the chair. We will just verify the votes cast. Thank you, committee. All votes have been cast. Just to confirm that Councillor Fisher is not present with us, so there was a maximum of 11 votes cast. The recommendation was not carried and was voted against. Therefore, the vote has currently stopped. So to confirm for yourself, Chair, you still have a second recommendation on the table, as moved by Councillor Thomas and seconded by Councillor Goodjohn, which was to endorse the report.
Yeah, we're going to put that to a vote as well, please. See how many are for it and how many are against. So if you bear with Amy whilst she sets it up.
Okay, committee, as invited by your chair, you will secondly be asked to vote on the vice chairman's recommendation to endorse the report as presented. I will be starting the vote shortly, and the same process applies for, against or abstain. Okay, you have all your votes. We're happy to give. Thank you very much, committee. 11 votes have been cast, giving the absence of Councillor Fisher, and that recommendation has been carried.
Thank you all very much for your attendance this evening. And my understanding is this report won't be coming back to this committee, but we will get an opportunity to view it and speak on it then, I'm sure. So thank you all very much for your attendance and your patience. And good night and take care. Have a good evening.